Just because you do a few things with some dudes doesn't mean you're gay.
It was the nom, man. Shit was different. Willem Dafoe out there shirtless.
Oh my God.
Who knows what could happen?
My fucking dad cannot listen to this episode, y'all.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie at Blockbuster Video? Do you even know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons. Alongside me are my co-hosts, Ash, there's a scorpion on my back, Jones.
Hi, y'all.
And coming to you from sunny Burbank, California, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Each week, we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatthemovies.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. That's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, Lovecraft Country, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, and Watchmen. Find all that information and past episodes at shatontv.com. And finally, to hang out with us live all week long, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatthemovies.com/Twitch, where we play video games, host watch parties, and you can watch me edit live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing tonight?
Well, Gene, like you said, this is a very exciting remote podcast. I am currently recording from the lovely La Quinta Inn breakfast bar area, right outside the lobby. Because Vanessa and Em are up in the room, and my language is not normally conducive to a happy child or wife. So I'm recording downstairs here for you. So if there are any echoes or audio problems, deal with it, folks. I'm recording, and I carried this stuff all the way out west just for you.
So two things. One, the dedication of doing this while you're on vacation. And two, this is your first time in California?
It is. It's my first time going west of... Well, no, I was at Seattle. So this is, my first time actually in California, which is where I really wanted to go.
Is it basically Florida, but west?
No, hell no. I've only seen a couple flag stickers. People don't drive like they want to kill you. Everybody's been super chill. Like, people are all like, hey, it's okay. You can kind of cut in. I've really liked it. People are, the only thing that surprises me is the homeless encampments. Other than that, it's been super chill.
Well, clearly you've never been to Houston, the homeless capital of the United States.
No, but that's next on my homeless trail. We're going to go. But listen, to go back to our podcast here, we've got a special commission. I don't want to cut you off like that. That was rude.
No, that's so good.
No, it was great. What a great
homeless
transition.
tour. Homeless trail.
So as we are recording here from California and on the road, one of our greatest supporters, Jen D, wanted to commission something special for her husband, Patrick. So we're going to go shave our heads, enlist in the Army, and we're going to go out there and try to make a difference and make sure the troops have clean drinking water as we review the 1994 comedy Army film, In the Army Now.
Well, and our commission letter comes in two parts this week. And the first is from Jen D herself. And she says, hey, Shat Crew. It's Jen again with one more birthday commission, this time for my husband, Patrick. We love watching movies together. And In the Army Now, our Stripes for 90s Kids, is one of the few military films where he can relate without it ruining the mood. Also, consider this a Lori Petty redemption. And it was time to add Pauly Shore to the Shat lineup. We avoided it long enough. Plus, camels. Love you guys and Happy New Year. Here's a note from the Colonel. And the Colonel says, hey, Shat Crew, my wife introduced me to your podcast a while ago, and then we loved engaging you on Shappy Hour during the pandemic. Thank you. I remember In the Army Now when it first came out. I was a sophomore in high school, and I liked the idea of the military and the challenges I may face. A mere 18 months later, I joined the Illinois Army National Guard as soon as I turned 17. Yes, I needed my dad's approval because I was under 18. A few months later, I was on my first plane ride to basic combat training, the same as Jack and Bones, Fort Sill, Oklahoma. I remember wanting to be all I can be, and 25 years later, I'm still happy to serve my country. I love the cast engagements, the classic one-liners, the memories of being at Fort Sill, and I love how your team describes movies, regardless of my shot score. The iconic drop the pin, throw the grenade is used almost weekly in our family. It's applicable to tons of situations. It's funny, and I remember throwing the grenade and dropping the pin during training. I appreciate what you all do. I hope you got a few laughs. I love that my wife commissioned this for me. Happy holidays, Patrick D.
Well, Patrick, we certainly miss doing Shappy Hour with you. And as soon as Shat Studios West is up and running, aka the Seance Room out here in Tempe, Arizona, I'll be sure to do some more streams, and hopefully we can hang out then if you guys aren't too busy. And Jen, thank you for the birthday commissions for everyone in the family. We're expecting one more very soon. In the Army Now is a 1994 war comedy film starring Pauly Shore, Andy Dick, David Alan Grier, and Lori Petty. The film earned $29 million at the box office, making it the fourth highest grossing film starring Pauly Shore, behind Encino Man, Son-in-Law, and A Goofy Movie. Now, Ash, Big D, we heard about Jen and Patrick's memories of In the Army Now. Ash, we'll start with you. What do you remember about this movie?
So I can't remember when I saw this for the first time, but I do know it was A, with my dad, and B, made him really fucking mad. So my dad is a super chill guy. He's really funny, but there's one thing that he cannot handle other than being accused of serving frozen fish, which we've already addressed on another podcast.
Awful.
The only other thing is anything that he considers like even bordering on a parody of the military or like soldiers in conflict. I mentioned before that my dad is like, no exaggeration, like a legit war hero, was like captured, has multiple Purple Hearts, like good dude. And like there's just something about it that pisses him off. And nothing made him angrier than Tropic Thunder. That is like at the height of like the things that he could not handle, because it both was a parody and about Vietnam. But this one I remember being pretty bad too. He left about a third of the way through the film and just waited in the lobby for us to finish watching it. Now I do know that I've never really been a huge Pauly Shore fan. I have to go ahead and get that out of the way right now. I love Encino Man, but I love it because I love Brendan Fraser in it. And Son-in-Law, yeah, it's a fine film, but Pauly Shore I think is a little annoying. So this isn't one of my favorites, but for you, Jen and Patrick, I went back and I tried to give it a fair shake. So here we go.
It's a really good thing I'm not a combat veteran, because I see where your dad's coming from in this, but I wouldn't even limit it at comedies. Just the idea of some like Hollywood, fuckface going out there being like, I'm going to play the role. I'm going to put myself in the position of these troops that saw combat. It's just such a fucking annoying concept that it's amazing any of us can stomach war movies to begin with. Ash, unlike you, Pauly Shore movies were something I enjoyed, but they were never something in my must-see category. They were just like things that my friends and I could all agree on renting for sleepovers and weekend hangouts. Like you go to the video store, everybody spreads out. And the one thing everyone agrees on is like, yeah, Pauly Shore will be okay. But we were more obsessed with, like you said, Encino Man, Son-in-Law. This was very low on the list and not a favorite among the crew.
So I have to admit, this is the first time I've ever seen In the Army Now. This movie came out, I was in college, and I, like you, Ash, I hated Pauly Shore. I didn't get the whole shtick, the whole persona, the wheeze, like all the noises he made. I didn't get it. But I could sympathize with the characters in this film, because much like Bones and Jack, I joined the Army because I needed money. I had graduated college in 98. I had a ton of student loan debt. And I thought, hey, the military might be a good eye. Let's do that. So the Navy was my first stop. They wouldn't do loan repayment. The Air Force would not do loan repayment. They would have paid for my master's. But the Army recruiter was right down the hall. And he's like, hey, we could help you out. So they paid off my student loan a third on the anniversary of my enlistment. So I had to serve all 4 years in order to get it paid back. But in February of 99, I enlisted as a 12 Bravo combat engineer. And like these two knuckleheads in the film, I thought I'd be safe. I was like, we're not going back to war soon. We had just gotten out of the Gulf. I'm like, fuck up. We're good, man. I got another 10 years. Boom. In basic training, Kosovo blows up. So they start deploying troops. Then there's this little thing, September 11th, that happens. Oops. Bad idea or bad timing. Okay. So on a certain level, I can understand where these guys were coming from. And these types of movies don't bother me. Stolen Valor bothers me. When people pretend to be war heroes, but if somebody is a comedian, obviously kind of having fun with it, it doesn't bother me. But this movie, we'll get into it. This was not something that upset me, but it wasn't something that entertained me either.
Hey, Ash, how does your dad feel about Bob Hope?
That motherfucker.
The guy that used to do the USO tours.
Yeah.
I
Like, does he not mix comedy and war at all? Or is it more like just don't make movies about it?
I think it's, first of all, we never really addressed Bob Hope, but but I can tell you that it's probably just the movies, and he's not a big fan of like war films either, like serious war films. The only ones that he's ever given any credence to are Saving Private Ryan, which he had to leave because he had a panic attack from the opening scene because he said it was the most realistic portrayal of combat ever with all the whizzing bullets. And then he loved Band of Brothers, but other than that, he doesn't really engage in the war stuff. He says he's lived it, so why the fuck would he want to watch it again?
And Big D, you said that DVDs were like hot currency when you were in the military. Were war comedies popular among the guys?
Dude, I'll be honest with you. Anything is popular. Anything that is less than like 6 months old is gold. It gets passed around. It's like cigarettes in prison. If you got like, I got like 20 brand new DVDs. Well, let's see what you got. And you trade them up. Yeah, it's a little bit of home that keeps people going. So that's why they're important.
All right. Without further ado, we got to come up with some better transitions. Jesus Christ. I'm out of them.
Let's roll that trailer.
Let's head on down to the recruitment station and sign up.
Oh, God.
Let's be all we can be.
All right, there we go. That's it. It is right there. All right. Well, it's time to be all we can be. Big D, hit the trailer.
Pauly Shore brought history to life in California Man. He got a taste of life on the farm in The Son-in-Law. Now he's about to put his life on the line. Pauly Shore is in the Army now.
You will obey every order, grunt!
He's getting into shape.
Can I please throw up now?
Learning special skills.
Drop the pen, throw the grenade.
And proving the last thing the Army needs
Let's go bust some scud!
is a loose cannon.
Suck on this at one time! Sorry.
Drop! And give me push-ups!
All the way up and down, right?
Hollywood Pictures presents Pauly Shore.
Ow!
In the Army now.
Can I call you General Sweetpants?
Slackers Bones Conway, played by Pauly Shore, and Jack Hoffman, played by Andy Dick, are fired from Crazy Boys Discount Electronics Store after destroying a rack of TV sets. Looking to score some quick money, the two join the U.S. Army Reserves. After surviving basic training, they attend water purification training, meeting up with Christine Jones, played by Lori Petty, a female recruit longing for infantry, and skittish dental student Fred Ostroff, played by David Allen Greer. Adopting the nickname of Water Boys, the group then returns to Glendale, California.
Okay, so I have to say from the outset, I was shocked at how young everybody looks in this movie. Pauly Shore looks like a fucking baby. He looks like he's like 16, 17 years old. And guys, I don't know if I'm just feeling extra thirsty because it's the holidays or whatever, but I thought Pauly Shore was fucking hot in this movie. That hair that he has, like that little curly thing he's got going on, he wears that sexy medallion. He's like a weird little nerdy like Austin Powers, right? And like there's something like kind of hot about him. And then you've got Andy Dick, who's super young, but also still looks like a walking like tool. Like the dude is one of the weirdest actors, like in the way that he looks I've ever seen, but super young. And then you've got fucking Lori Petty. I did not remember that Lori Petty was in this. And she's a baby. She's absolutely a baby. And she's also a baby actor. Because guys, I don't know about you, but I thought she was really terrible in this. Like the way she delivers her lines, the way that she acts. It looks like it's like her first go at it. It looks like a screen test. And I was like, oh, Lori.
What's weird is this came out after A League of Their Own, where I felt like she was better in A League of Their Own. Like it's like she regressed. And so I'm starting to think it's not her fault. Like maybe the script and the character are paper thing. Because if you think about it, like 2 years after this, Lori Petty's in Tank Girl and she's fantastic. And that's like not exactly a blockbuster film with like the best writers in Hollywood on it, but she was phenomenally charismatic in that and became like kind of a cult hero. Whereas this, like you said, Ash, was kind of a forgettable role.
But Ash, I think besides the actors appearing young, this is true to my experience at least. When I joined, I was older. I was the old man at 25. I'd graduated college. Everyone I went to was a kid. Everyone was some kid looking to get out of this dead-end town, find a better life, get a career either in the army or attend college. There were no like gung-ho flag-waving dudes. These were all kids, and I was blown away with my experience in it. I mean, what's the big saying? That the wars of the rich are fought on the backs of the poor? Everyone that I served with was like a kid. It was like a child. And watching these recruits, the basic part, we'll get into it, it seemed really genuine to my experience.
Yeah, one of my favorite TikTok genres is military TikTok. And the best videos are the ones where they just go around from dude to dude on base. And they're like, why'd you sign up? Or if you could talk to your recruiter right now, what would you say? And it's fucking hilarious because nobody's like jazzed to be there.
No.
Big D, I'm going to need your help here. So I could have called my dad because he's military, but I didn't because he's Air Force. So I need you to help me with this Army thing. Why do they have reserves? Like, is this different than the National Guard? How is it? And I need you to talk me through this contract here because they say 2 weeks a year and 1 weekend a month. So is it 1 weekend a month plus 2 weeks a year? When does that 2 weeks come? They get a $2,500 signing bonus, but how much are they paid on those weekends? How much are they paid during those 2 weeks? Help me out.
So, Ash, basically, like I told you, where everyone who joins is out of need. Some people have common sense. So they're a little more like, I don't know if I really want to go full-blown war and go army. Well, hey, do you want to do cosplay army? You don't got to do it full time. You just come in every couple weekends. We'll get together. We'll have some fun. It's a sales pitch to get people in. But the National Guard is like states. So if something happens within the state, if there's a natural disaster, the state can call up their local state National Guard. The reserves are a reserve, as the name implies, component of the U.S. military. They're usually only activated if there's something big, like a natural disaster, wildfires, something where they're needed as a reserve force. But it's basically the part-time approach for selling the above, way to a better life. It's for the people. A lot of them I saw, which is kind of shocking, they wanted full-time medical insurance. That shows you how fucked up we are.
Where it gets really interesting is right now. So as Big D mentioned, you got the National Guard that's at the state level, and then you've got your reserves are at the federal level. They actually report directly to the Army, the Navy, et cetera. The 2 weeks out of the year and the 1 weekend a month, that's for training and like staying sharp. When you get deployed, shit's totally different. So like currently, you got people that are getting deployed for like COVID. They're National Guard units, but they're getting deployed for like months on end. And yes, legally, like your job is still supposed to be there for you when you get back. But let's say you're like a partner in a law firm, right? And that law firm, while you're gone, or somebody who runs a business, and while you're gone, that they go out of business because you're not there. You don't get compensated for that shit. It's just gone. And what's really crazy is, yes, the National Guard is controlled by the states, but where do they get their armor? Like, where do they get their vehicles, right? All that shit comes from the federal government. So the federal government's like, oh, like Arizona National Guard, you don't want to help out with this? Cool. You won't get any more vehicles. So you better fucking show up. And then it gets even more complicated when you throw in the Air National Guard, and that's a whole story to itself.
But here's the fucked up approach. Whatever you do, let's just say you're a violinist. If you only practice 1 weekend a month and a week a year, how good of a violinist are you going to be? It's impossible to be good at anything, only doing it that little time.
I know. I mean, it feels like they're like the understudies, right? And then they get called up and they're not as good as the principals. Yeah. Well, the thing that I did enjoy about this that I thought was pretty funny is once they got to boot camp. This is when Pauly Shore is at his best, which is like his physical humor mixed with like this stoner comedy, and he was great. And I have to say that the boot camp scenes in movies I usually find to be absolutely ridiculous. And for some reason, the one that always pops in my mind, I don't know if you guys saw it. Do you guys remember that movie Major Payne?
Of course, with David Waynes.
Yes.
I mean, I remember it, but like
Right.
I remember it existing.
like him being like the boot camp drill sergeant is what I think about. And so I remember my dad used to tell the funniest stories about boot camp because his whole family was in the military and a bunch of our cousins are. And when he was at boot camp, they got off of the bus. And so my dad had just turned 17. And so they were like screaming at them, trying to get him. And so they're like, you better go shave every fucking hair off of your head. And so they sent them in to go like clean shave themselves. And so some guy was with them and he was so nervous. He came out just like dripping blood, like all down his face because he shaved his eyebrows off because he thought that's what he had to do.
Cream of the crop. He's getting the cream of the crop.
Right. Well, I mean, he wasn't listed, right? And so, I think that's what's so fucked up about this is like, it's funny here, but like, I can't imagine. And I have so much respect for people like you, Big D and Gene for your ROTC service. I really appreciate that. And I respect what you've done, but I can't imagine ever putting myself in a situation, one, where someone forces me to work out all the time. That sounds awful. And secondly, where like, they're going to just be screaming in my face. I could never put up with that. I hate authority. I have such like an authority complex that like I would just go fuck you and like walk away.
Okay, so listen, I'm going to get into this, and before we get hate mail about people, my experience is my own personal experience. Everyone, wherever you went to basic, whatever your MOS was, they're all going to be very different.
Wait, what's MOS?
It's a military occupational specialty.
Okay. You got to define the acronyms here.
Okay, we will, and I'm going to get to that very soon when I talk about water purification specialists.
And in Farsi, it means banana.
Okay, so depending on what your banana is, okay, your experience could be completely different than mine. But for me, this was really accurate, but they fucked up the sequence. So little do you know, when you're joining the military, you can get out of it up until the point that you really get to your unit or to where you are going to do your basic training in. So I went to Fort Leonard Wood. Until you're there, you can get out. When you can run, when you can escape, so they're going to treat you nicely, like, hey, it's great. Come on, here's the sales pitch. It's going to be great. Once you get on the plane and you show up at your basic training, that's when they start yelling. That's when they shave your head. That's when you go through all of the in-processing stuff. That's when shit goes fucking wild. And that cattle truck, that is real. That's where they put you on with your duffel bag. You're ready to go. You get out and there's your drill sergeants. You meet them and they are screaming. They are doing everything you see in the movies. This is 100% accurate. And I was 25 at the time. So yeah, it's a lot of work, but I found it comical that people would break down. I was in the back row. So most of the drill sergeants focused their rage in the middle. So I kind of did well being at the back row.
How the fuck did they not focus on the giant in the back? Like, look at this motherfucker. I would be all over your ass. Well,
that was smart. They did get all over me, but that was like a couple days into it. But one of the things also I want to talk about, those glasses that they wear, the brown, the thick Buddy Holly frames, those are called BCGs, birth control glasses. And they make you wear those because they know you can't get laid in them. And the only contraband that I smuggled in with me into basic training was 6 pairs of disposable contacts because I knew I did not want to go through basic wearing those glasses. So I wore these contacts the entire time until about 6 weeks into it. And one of my drill sergeants goes, hey, I was looking at your paperwork. Where's your glasses? And he made me put my glasses on. So now I was now leading the platoon as a platoon guide with fucking glasses and contacts. I couldn't see shit. But a lot of this is accurate. The PT in the morning, the front back goes, the beating on the trash cans. It was great. And the only thing that I think that this movie got wrong is that when Bones is a wise ass, Bones is talking shit, Bones is acting up, all the drill sergeants would have had to do was to make him stand in front of the entire platoon or the company and just laugh. Ha, 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 as they smoke the living shit out of the rest of the company. You do this, and I've seen it done. He would immediately get the platoon to straighten Bones up really, really quick without a word. All you need to get is smoked for someone else, and you'll get him in line.
Yeah, I didn't understand. They were trying to make basic look like it was really tough, but Pauly's like so relaxed that he's trying to like hit on chicks. The entire processing part of this movie, we'll call it the fun part of Full Metal Jacket, right? They're just trying to pick up chicks. And I would think that getting in the military, it's the opposite. It's not a great place to pick up chicks. Whenever I've been on base in any branch, and I visited Marines, I visited Navy, I visited Army, most of the dudes, I would rate them like a 7 to 10, right? Most of them are fit. They're like good looking dudes. They got their heads on straight. Their hygiene's good. The women, I'd say, are like 3s to 5s on a scale of 1 to 10. Like even in the AFJ ROTC unit that I was in, what we would consider a hottie, Abernathy, I'm looking at you, they wouldn't get a second glance in the high school hallway. It's just because they were at ROTC and next to you, you're like, yeah, all right. You spend enough time around a girl and she starts looking pretty good. Meanwhile, in the Army now, it's like, oh, yeah, drill sergeant is kind of hot. And this private in my unit is kind of hot. And they all want to talk to me. Like, even the drill sergeant, you got to admit, like, she's taking a shine to Pauly after a while.
Oh, she looks great. They would call them barracks hot. The girls that in the barracks were hot, but outside, not really so hot.
And now I'm getting hopped up. Like I'm getting excited. Like I'm getting a little frenzy here about the military and my missed opportunity. Listen, I'm on the record of the podcast being anti-cop, supporting defund the police, but I've never soured on the military. Like, yes, I understand it's a cesspool of sexual abuse. I understand that the ultimate job of the military is to kill people and to force other nations to submit to our will. There are lots of jobs out there. But ultimately, what is the mission of the military is to do those things. But there are some positives. Like the military is diverse. The military is progressive. The military is intelligent. The U.S. military builds a great deal of camaraderie among those who serve. And I respected my mom's wishes to not become an Air Force officer. And Big D, like you said, it was 1998. I'm like, we're not going to war again. Like I can serve and it's not going to be a big deal. My junior year of college, suddenly, boom, 9/11. And I realized like there was some wisdom in, what she said. But after years and years of working in journalism and working with people who were either guardsmen or reservists or even former, full-time military, I decided, you know what, fuck, I'm going to go back and do that thing that I always wanted to do. And I'm going to sign up for the National Guard. And I discovered, shockingly, that I'm too old to do so. And that's a real fucking bummer.
And so listen, so anyone out there, I know we get complaints a lot of times, like, get to the movie. You guys are talking too much about other stuff. Screw it. I'm not going to talk about
Get
Pauly
in the Army now.
Yes, I'm not going to talk about, Pauly Shore had signed a 3-picture deal, and he tried to get out of the second, but was forced to do In the Army Now, and that derailed his career. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about Pauly Shore's mother owning a comedy club and him going out and how he cut his teeth in comedy.
I'd actually like to know more about that.
I know, me too. I'm like, what documentary did you watch this week?
I didn't. It's my deep, hard-hitting, in-depth Shat The Movies research. But so listen, I just want to go ahead and say this. The military is a great experience. I think much like serving, serving in a restaurant, I think everybody should do it. It gave my life structure. No, I think any service, I think you learn something about yourself. But serving in the military, I think it's great. It gave me structure. I paid off my college. It gave me a baseline comparison for when someone says, man, I've had the worst day. I kind of know what a bad day is. I know when the idea of a dry pair of socks was the best thing I could hope for in the world. And I think anyone out there should do it if you're young and single. As a married person, the military lifestyle, it's rampant with cheating. And even the ones who don't cheat, it's a never-ending cycle of deployment. But as a single individual, it's a great experience that would set you up for whatever you want to achieve in life. And that's the end of my rah-rah join the military speech. On with In the Army Now.
Shat The Movies brought to you by the U.S. Army Reserve.
$2,500 sign-in bonus.
Well, unbeknownst to Bones and Jack, Libya has been planning on an invasion of Chad, and they are consequently called up for service overseas. Upon arriving in Chad, the four do not get along with the full-time soldiers, particularly Special Forces Staff Sergeant Stern. On a routine mission to resupply a forward base, their convoy is ambushed by a Libyan commando squad. The misfit reserves are thought to have been killed in action and are left to fend for themselves. So at this point in the movie, Jack and Bones are trying to get out of serving in Libya. They don't want to go overseas. They don't want to go to a war zone. And we get this scene where they're going to play gay to not get deployed. Now, again, this is during the era of don't ask, don't tell. So this is a thing that could potentially get them out of serving if they could just prove that they're homosexuals. And I expected this faking gay to get out of war scene to be super cringe. Like on its face, just the description of it, you're like, oh God, how bad is this going to be? And it was bad, but it wasn't that bad. what shocked me is I'm seeing this play out. You got Paul Mooney sitting there behind the desk. You got Andy Dick, David Allen Greer, and Pauly Shore there. And I'm like, none of these dudes was offended by this. Surely one of them's gay. I would have bet you $100 that at least one of the three main dudes of this movie was gay. Pauly Shore, Andy Dick, David Allen Greer. I scoured the internet. No evidence of any of it. All three of them have been married to women, and I know that doesn't mean you're not gay, but I haven't found any evidence that they are gay, and my mind was blown.
I just wish we'd actually seen the kiss. I wish it would have been that awkward, forced kiss that they actually went through it, because people do this. It sounds crazy, but all the time I would see and hear of people pretending to be gay. A bigger one is people pretend to be crazy to get out of basic, and then it just continues, because once you're there, they want to keep you. You're a number. And when you get to your unit, you would go see shrinks. People would go crazy. Then they turn into sick call rangers, which is for PT in the morning. They would always pretend they had some kind of medical issue to get out of PT or training or whatever. This shit happens. And normally I could see it where a company commander would pull them in and be like, you're full of shit. Prove it to me. I could totally see this happening.
You have to blow somebody. And even then I wouldn't be convinced, but at least you have to get that. Kissing dudes? I kiss dudes all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so easy to do. Ash has done it like at least 4 times.
What, blown dudes to get out of things?
No, kiss a dude.
In their dick room?
Yeah, no, I've kissed a few dudes. But if you want to see this play out in a full movie, it's that movie I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, right? With Adam Sandler and the fat guy. What's his name?
What? That sounds
Chris Farley?
That sounds derogatory.
Kevin
James?
Yes. Yeah, the two of them pretend to be gay to get insurance through the fire department, you know? So there's a whole movie out there, Big D, if you want to see it played to fruition there. But I have to admit, I was not laughing at all in this movie until we get to the scene in the mess hall. And you've got Pauly Shore, and he does this whole speech. And he gets all of his facts wrong about how, you know, if we had not fought in Desert Storm, then Saddam Hussein would still be in charge of Iraq, which at the time, of course, he was. And then he makes all of his jokes about Vietnam, and it's hilarious. And then I remembered why people like Pauly Shore, because Pauly Shore is at his best when he's the most Pauly Shore, when he's like doing some form of stand-up where he's not really acting, he's just riffing on something. And I liked it. I laughed out loud. But then I thought to myself, this speech literally could have been given by any character Pauly Shore has ever played. You could have inserted this speech in Encino Man. You could have inserted it in Son-in-Law, any film that Pauly Shore was in, because Pauly Shore only knows how to play Pauly Shore. He's got like one setting, and it's this scene. And it's okay, but that's all he's got.
Yeah, I'm not mad about it. I mean, he's basically Mr. Bean, right? He's basically Ernest. There was a Persian movie star. The character was named Samad. And let me read you some of the titles of Samad movies. I grew up on this shit, right? Samad goes to the school. Samad becomes an artist. Samad becomes fortunate. Samad goes to the city. Each of these is its own film. Samad and the Way of the Dragon. Right? Like it was the same guy. They just put him in different situations. And that's really what people want from Pauly. He doesn't need to be different characters. This is Martin Short and Little Nettie Goes to War, right? And when you think about it, if you actually break this movie down and you isolate the parts of the movie that are funny, the only parts of this movie that are actually funny is when Pauly is being Pauly or Andy Dick is just being Andy Dick. None of the rest of it works.
But my bigger problem is this is an unoriginal, uninspired copy of some better material. Of course, we get the speech as a copy of in Animal House, when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. Or this is a slacker version of Stripes. But the difference is Stripes, you had Murray and you had Aykroyd. They're better actors with better material. It wasn't derivative. But then they go to someplace dark that I didn't expect, where Bones gets a Dear John letter that his girl has already moved on. And this shit again, they obviously had some military expert on site who was telling them shit that happens, because this happens all the time. Dudes would deploy and you would get a letter from the wife or the girlfriend saying, dude, it's over. And it was usually somebody like this. The person they call is Jody. So we would sing cadence while we're running, you know, while you're not at home, Jody's on the phone, Jody's with your girl. yo, he ain't got your back, Jody's got your Cadillac, all this shit about your girlfriend being gone. So when Bones gets that letter, I was like, oh, maybe we're going to get some development of Bones' character. We're going to find out, who he is. It just meant nothing. And it went on.
They didn't need an expert on set. Big D, when I was a kid, I bought Run to Cadence with the U.S. Army Airborne cassette tape, and I listened to that thing all day long, and I knew about Jody. They could have just hired me. But this is another problem I have with like 80s and 90s movies, because in comedies, if your girlfriend isn't down to fuck immediately, it always means there's another dude. Like that is code in any of these movies for like what could it be? Could it be any issue other than her being with another man? Nope. And I like the way they played it though, right? It was probably like, he's like, if I wasn't so shallow, this would really bother me. Okay, and he's like, whatever. And it addresses the fact that he, there's no hypocrisy there. He's a fucking slut. And, and she's leaving him for another dude. He's okay. He's going to be great.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely like the antithesis to Jarhead, right? Like that whole scene in Jarhead where everybody's getting broken up with and we got to deal with that for like 15 minutes. I mean, I did like that. And again, Pauly Shore, that's exactly how I would expect Pauly Shore to react to a breakup in every movie he's ever been in. But I want to come back to you, Big D, as my residential military expert here on the podcast. Water purification.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Right? Like the Army seriously is going to send 4 understudies that they pay combat pay to basically be like walking Brita filters. Like there has to be a tablet or a mechanical filtration system, or like Bear Grylls, how he uses that straw thing where like he can drink out of any like dirty pond water and it becomes, totally sanitized. Like why can't we just distribute straw things to all of the military? I mean, help me out. Is this a real fucking job?
Fuck yes, this is a real job. Are you kidding me? Listen, basically every job that's in the real world has to exist within the military. How many gallons of water do you think an average soldier goes through in the desert when they're in Chad and when they're humping around all their gear, their commando gear, and they're out there running raids on the Libyan missiles? You're going to go through a lot of water. And units require thousands of gallons of water. So that shit's real. This is actually a 92 whiskey. They are a water treatment specialist. It's real. There's some other fucking more ridiculous ones, like the 92 Sierra. That's a shower and laundry specialist, or an 88 Papa, which is a railway equipment specialist. These shits are fucking ridiculous. But in a little of my research, in the Second Gulf War, one of the highest fatality rates were for water purification specialists, because they were normally towards the back of any convoys and they weren't the most highly trained. So they were the most susceptible. And the enemy knew if you can take out some of these water purification equipments and some of the crew, you could take away all forward operations because everyone needs water.
Well, after a few days lost in the desert, the reserves are captured by the Libyan forces and spend a night in a Libyan POW camp. There, they meet up with Staff Sergeant Stern, who has been shot and captured in an ambush. He briefs them on his failed mission to rendezvous with 2 Haloed fast attack vehicles and destroy mobile Scud launchers carrying missiles armed with chemical warheads aimed at American bases in the region. So the movie at this point is just this mishmash of like stupid gags and some hidden intelligence, and I'm trying to parse through it, and I can't really make up my mind. This is about 3/4 through the movie. I'm still on the fence, and I'm really waiting for the big like finale to see where I end up on this movie. There's an intelligence, but that the cheap gags ruin it. Like I felt like I was watching clowns at a circus. That sucked, right? Because nobody likes the clowns at a circus. But occasionally you get to see them backstage. You're like, oh, these motherfuckers are really funny. You got Paul Mooney just being hilarious in the gay kissing scene. He's on screen for 30 seconds? Hilarious. The scene where the drill sergeant tells Pauly Shore to obey every order and then calls him a grunt. And there's like a 5-second pause. And then he just says, or when he says, that's not how the Army goes, or just most girls are into horses and stuff. The Brendan Fraser cameo, like there is funny shit in here.
Totally.
But the problem is that I feel like they're trying to like, I almost feel like there was some review board when they screened this and they were like, yeah, we need stuff for like the average Joe though. And they're not going to get all that shit.
Yeah, I mean, did you guys not feel like there were like moments of this, like it was produced by the people who did like the Mel Brooks movies at the same time? Like, because you'd have really smart stuff and then it would feel like Robin Hood Men in Tights, where like it would be like these really, really cheap laughs and like these really poorly written scenes that felt like pegged in, where like they had like a very raw storyboard, again, like that stand-up thing where it's bookended, and then somebody came along and just was like, okay, well, we need a joke here, here, and here. And so we're just going to throw these things, and it's gross out humor, it's sex humor, and it's just not. It didn't feel like it felt like two different people wrote the film.
There's 5 people who wrote it. It's a lot of different hands in there. And I think you're right. I think they were like maybe like bullet points. Burnouts, join army, get captured, save the day. And that was it. Okay, go shoot it. Everybody go out into California. Let's go shoot this and see what happens. But there are some of the improv scenes that just they fucking hit for me. And they're ridiculous. I know I shouldn't laugh at this, but you get Andy Dick losing his mind. He strips naked and he just starts running butt-ass naked through the sand. He ends up laying face down. It's funny. Or when the Libyans capture them and they're actually now going to talk to the SF, like that staff sergeant, and they're like, okay, shh, they're listening. And they start singing an impromptu rendition of like Rescue Me. And the Libyans on the headphones start like jamming out. These things worked, and there were little tiny morsels, and it might have been I thought they were funny just because there was nothing else in this movie to make me laugh, and these little tiny things were all I could latch onto.
No, it really felt like you took some people who could do like genius stand-up comedy, and then you said, okay, we're going to put you through the paces of the typical dumb 90s comedy. You're just going to have to go do these things, right? Do you want to make a movie or not? And as evidence of that, you got so many lame cultural references, right? You got, Beatles references. You got Pauly Shore doing like impersonations of Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men. He didn't want to do that material. Mm-mm. But there was one really, really smart point. They're sitting there. They're out in the desert. They're on combat operations. And this fucking Of Mice and Men reference just comes out of nowhere, where Andy Dick looks over at Pauly Shore and he's like, Bones, tell me about the store. And I'm like, holy shit, that's so fucking funny. They're smart, and that 90% of the audience back in 94, that went right over their fucking heads.
Oh, so fucking good. So good. But again, it's like there were so many hands in this that there was nobody overseeing it and making sure that it all flowed. But there were moments of genius. And I've talked a lot here on this podcast about my experience with the military. I want to put this out there to our audience, to those who served. Ash, if you want to ask your dad's input, this could help me. Through my entire military career in the combat arms, I only served with male soldiers. There was never a female soldier in any of the companies that I was assigned to. So I don't know what other people's experiences are. I don't know if you served with women, because people are people, right? So if you put people together in any work environment, eventually they're going to start to kind of like each other. They're going to start to hit it off. They're going to start to have feelings. It happens in every job, and the military is the same. But I never served with anyone. So at this point, Bones, he's been hitting on Christine. He's telling you, joking. Do you know what happens with near-death experiences? It normally leads for a desire for sex. Is she upset? No, she actually likes it. She decides to tell him, if you get us saved, I'm going to give you the dirtiest, raunchiest sex. And he is her superior as a Spec 4 or whatever. But Bones manages to get them rescued. And then we assume this is going to happen. But when you serve together, I want to know out there in the real world, did this happen? Were people sleeping with their subordinates? I don't know if this happens. I'd be interested to hear. So if you want to ask your dad if there was any sleeping going on in units that he was assigned to.
Yeah, my dad only served with dudes, so no.
Okay, I hope the answer is no then.
Why? Why? I think that'd be great.
That'd be a late in life
Sorry,
revelation.
gay listeners.
No, I just think your mom would be a little surprised to hear that.
Are you talking about my dad?
Yes, that's what I said.
But you can, just because you do a few things with some dudes doesn't mean you're gay.
It was the nom, man. Shit was different. Willem Dafoe out there shirtless.
Oh my God.
Who knows what could happen?
My fucking dad cannot listen to this episode, y'all. No, he's not gay, but I'm sure some of the people he served with were. I hope they were getting it on over there.
A couple things here.
Sweaty jungle sex.
Mm-hmm.
A couple things here. So Pauly Shore, even when he hits on the drill instructor, like he's not really hitting on her. Like he moves his gig line off to get her to touch his pants, but she doesn't have to touch his pants. right? Like she could just have him do push-ups and shit. She wants to touch his pants. He's giving her windows in there, right? And as far as that near-death experiencing, that was Jack. Jack was hitting on Christine, and he says, you know, do you know that after near-death experiences, it's normal to have a desire for sex? And she says, oh yeah, I feel it, just not with you. She wanted to fuck Pauly from the start. It has nothing to do with his combat performance. That was just an excuse to bang him. That being said, I can fucking guarantee that Christine does not exist in real life. Like that, like there's no woman in the world who's out there on combat ops and it's like, oh my God, I'm so turned on by Pauly Shore that I'm going to give him dirty, raunchy sex. Beyond that, what's wrong with fucking while you're at war? I think that this is just a paradigm that we've set up for ourselves. And I give you examples, historical examples, Big D. This sacred band of Thebes, 300 men, there were 150 couples, okay, fighting, you know, in Greece, okay, ancient Greece. And these dudes were chosen. There was like the older dude and then his younger, you know, consort. And they believed that the bonds of love would make them a superior fighting force. Spartans, they fucked each other all the time and they were totally kick-ass. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I honestly think that units might be better if everybody was fucking Starship Troopers.
I don't know. I mean, like, if you're like in a, you know, a situation where you think that you're going to die, like, wouldn't you want to have sex one last time before you go? Makes sense to me.
I used to think that, but in stressful situations, I don't get boners.
Yeah, but like, are you trying to get one?
If I'm in a I might die situation, am I trying to get an erection? No.
No. I mean, like,
I'm trying to live.
You're in like an intense situation, like you're super stressed. Like, I feel like it's one of the best stress relievers out there is to have sex. So like, it makes sense to me. Like, you're super tense. You're doing all these like walk arounds all day with your guns, like maybe killing people, maybe not. And then you come back and you're stressed and you want to relax. So you fuck somebody, right? I mean, it makes sense.
Oh my God.
Big D, you ever been horny with a rifle in your hand?
No, but there's so many easy like metaphors. Oh, you better clean your weapon. Don't get a sandy. I want you to come back and lock and load on me. No, I don't think you can do this. What happens if your battle buddy gets killed? I can't go into combat. I just lost my lover.
Yeah, but you might be more willing to fight for your lover.
Yeah, you have to avenge them.
But also, you know what? I might protect him over the company. I might leave my position to save my lover who might have been captured. It's one of the problems with having relationships in combat is you're going to care about that person like a family member more than the other guy next to you, and they should all be equal.
In every war movie ever, like they're always like, no, Johnny's dead. Like they already care about them like family. So if you're already going to be like that, at least fuck them too.
But the difference is if you have Johnny, Frank, and Paul, and you're fucking Johnny, you're going to care about Johnny more than Paul and Frank.
I mean,
you got to care about them all the same.
I still feel like you love Paul and Frank too.
Maybe, but not the same way.
What if they were all poly? Not
You're
Pauly
fucking them
Shore,
all?
like polyamorous.
Oh, if they were all with each other.
What if you're in like a throuple?
Yeah.
So you, Paul, and Frank all have a thing.
See, but here's the problem. Then you also mix in the fact of a superior position in the military. You have to follow orders. So what do you do here? Are you all equal rank? Is someone lower rank? It's
I think that's
messy.
it. You're having sex only with the people of equal rank. That's like the rule.
But what if one of them has titties? Is not an answer here.
Yeah,
I was waiting for Big D to answer.
I'm just so
why
lost.
does it matter?
What?
I mean, I like titties.
I mean, those are nice, yeah. But I mean, whether they have boobs or not, like you could still have sex with them.
No, I mean, if there's 6 dudes in a unit and one chick, she's the one with the titties. See?
Yeah, just again, Ash, right? Just come on, love, and it's war.
Well, it's whatever she wants. I mean, I'm not judging fake titty lady about what she does with her body
Why are her
war.
titties fake?
No, I mean, like, she doesn't actually exist. Her titties can be very real.
Jesus,
I just mean, like, hypothetical titty lady would probably have been a better way to put that because that was confusing. But I mean, I want hypothetical titty lady to have consent and, ownership of her body. But if she wants to join in your throuple with Paul and Frank and it become a quadruple, I think that's hot.
Sacred Band of Thieves.
Mm-hmm.
During an airstrike, the 4 reservists and Stern escape and find the fast attack vehicles. They make contact with the American headquarters and are ordered to finish the Special Forces mission. After locating the missiles, they have a difficult time holding off a battalion of Libyans while painting the missiles with a laser for an incoming airstrike. The airstrike goes off target, forcing the reservists to destroy the missiles themselves. The Water Boys return home as heroes and open their own electronics store. So speaking of hypothetical titty lady, I never thought I'd say this, but could we get some clothes on Lori Petty, please?
No.
Like, I get that she cut the sleeves off her fatigues to hold extra water, but for some reason, by the end of the movie, she's running through the Libyan desert with her hot tummy exposed. She's sleeping in the tent with 3 dudes and no pants. And I'm not saying that different rules should apply to men and women in the military. Like, Pauly's in his tighty whities too. I get that she has every right to be in her undies as well. But what I'm saying is she's supposed to be the soldier with the most combat and survival smarts, right? Like, she's out there to kick ass. That was her whole drive. They didn't need to sex her up. And if you do sex her up, you got to make her the horny one of the group, or like the femme fatale. Like that should be the character build, right? Instead, we get somebody who's solely focused on wanting to be infantry. And then suddenly, what is it? Pauly's dick that made her get sexy?
I think you can.
I don't know how to respond to that.
I think you can be deadly and hot at the same time. I think it's a tough double act to pull, but she pulls it off. She looks good.
Well, I mean, my problem is the costume department like horribly fails here. Where like at first it looks like she's clearly just taken a shirt and like ripped a sleeve off and then ripped another sleeve off. And then all of a sudden she's like clearly in just like a bandeau bra that she did not have with her there in the Libyan desert. Like they put it on her. It looked absolutely nothing like the clothing she was wearing the scene before.
Yeah, speaking of Big D, is it common for uniforms to be mismatched? Like they got like the desert fatigues, but then they got like the olive drab belts and like gear. Like what's the tackle all about?
No, no. The basic units look pretty good, but like when they're out in the desert, they start mixing and matching. They start modifying it, and you're talking about continuity. Normally, when you get productions like Game of Thrones, every time an actor was on set, they would take a Polaroid of them, so that in the sequence of shooting a scene or a season, they could go back and say, okay, what did they look like? Where was the blood smudged? What did the outfit look like? So it was continuous. This movie, there is nothing.
Nope.
The outfits change. The locations of the equipment change. The condition of the equipment change. They get that final sortie to attack and blow up the missile. It is 4 different planes that are shown during this one bombing run. None of them are bombers. None of them are loaded with bombs. It's like an F-14. It's like a Harrier. It is ridiculous. There is no continuity. I think this was shot over one of those 1 weeks a year for the reserves out in the desert of California.
Well, or they went back and did a bunch of reshoots, because another thing that changes very subtly is Pauly Shore's hair length throughout the film. Like he's got like a really close shaved head, and then all of a sudden it's like a month's worth of growth, and like they just didn't have the time to shave him again. That aside, costuming issues and plane issues, I do have to say that I've shit on this movie a lot. But the combat scene at the end of this film makes every fucking second absolutely worth it from watching it, because you've got this failed explosive device, you've got the failed laser painting, you've got the gag of David Allen Greer standing there with that massive, like, do y'all remember those camcorders like from when we were kids? Like my dad had one and he would tape us doing everything, and like he had to hold it on his shoulder because it weighed like 20 pounds. Like that's the laser painter that David Allen Greer has. And then when Pauly Shore says, okay, everybody scream as loud as you can, and then they all fire their guns and hit absolutely nothing, I was cracking up laughing in this whole 15-minute segment. I'm just really bummed that the rest of the movie isn't as funny as like this one part.
100% agree with you, Ash. I posted the best 13 seconds of this movie on Twitter and Instagram from the Shat The Movies account. Pauly picks up the rocket launcher. He reads the instructions, cock firing mechanism. Then he gets a call from the first sergeant. He drops the rocket launcher. He picks up the radio and hears report your situation. And he just decides, fuck it, and says, shut up. It's funny every single time. This section of the movie is what the whole movie should have been.
Oh, it's complete hijinks. And we've railed on films, Gene, I think for like the last 2.5 years, about backblast area clear. Anytime you're shooting a rocket or you're shooting any kind of shoulder mounted munitions, the rocket is going to shoot out hot molten plastic out of the back. So you need to tell people around you, hey, backblast area clear, to make sure that your friends don't get a hot face of molten plastic. But this scene is funny because they go balls to the wall. They don't try to take a half measure. It is just bonkers, and that's why it works.
But I'm still left with so many questions. Like, this entire situation was started out because their truck got stranded. Did they not have a radio? Lori Petty, she supposedly wants to be infantry. Did nobody teach her how to shoot? They left a water truck to find a stream. An NCO is commanding an entire forward operating base and calling in airstrikes. Pilots don't have painted missile sights, but they can fucking see the Scud missiles that are like on trucks. Can they not bomb them by just line of sight? And I get it. It's a dumb comedy, but make it a comedy. Answer those questions as opportunities to make something funny happen. So you could have the opportunity where you have a scene where maybe they didn't pay attention on how to use radios and it comes back to bite them in the ass. Maybe Pauly grabs a fuel truck instead of the water truck, and that's why they don't have water. Maybe the pilots are similarly clueless reservists. Imagine this. They call in the jets, and in the jets, you just have characters that are also played by Pauly Shore and Andy Dick. and they're like air reservists or whatever. I don't know. Fucking just try to make this movie funny by answering these basic questions.
Yeah, I don't know why they don't do that. Again, I think it's because there were so many writers and it was everybody taking a piece of the puzzle instead of focusing on what really worked, because we waste so much time. And when we get to the conclusion, I felt again disappointed. The whole point of them joining the military was get the money because they want to start a stereo store. This is what every fucking loser character in the 80s and 90s would do. They wanted to open a stereo store. Do you remember Boogie Nights? Buck's super cool stereo store. It's just, why do they want to do it? They want to go and they want to open Sahara Stereo. Wouldn't it have been great if Sahara Stereos, you see them, the grand opening, and they're unrolling the brand new sign for Sahara Stereos over the Crazy Boys electronics store, so that they somehow managed with their money to put the old boss out of business for doubting their abilities. That would have given a complete closure to the movie, regardless of the fact that they wanted to open a non-existent business today.
First of all, Buck was cool as fuck. He was not a loser. But we need stereo stores. I think the 90s and 80s trend of stereo stores needs to come back, because a stereo is like one of the hardest things to buy online. You're always missing one component of it, or the sound quality is shit. And I just want to take a moment here to actually address this issue that we've lost all quality control in the world. Half the people I know listen to music through their phones. It's fucking infuriating. Everybody go out there, buy some quality audio equipment. We work very hard on this podcast. Big D is like the biggest stickler for audio I've ever heard. And you guys are probably listening to this on your iPhones. You fucks.
Yep.
Go buy a good stereo. Don't buy that Sonos shit either, because you got to connect it to your Wi-Fi for some fucking reason. You can't just do Bluetooth. That's stupid.
Yeah, fucking good audio. You just make, why do I care so much about the quality of the audio? People, you're right. They're probably listening to their cars with the windows open or shitty headphones.
Yeah.
They don't know the difference. They can't hear Ash making noise or Gene clicking his glass or me breathing. Fuck. I just wasted like 6 months of my life. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, fucking, yeah. I mean, I go back to this. We just passed, 3 million downloads, but you know who's bigger than us? El Chapo Trap House. Their audio sucks. Your audio sucks. Meanwhile, you got guys like us, gals like us, guys like Kevin Brackett, putting out good quality audio, except for sometimes when they have a guest on. That audio is not very good.
Yeah, or they're talking in the breakfast nook as people are walking by. They just got back from the Rams game. They're looking a bit drunk, so we might get some special guests here real soon as the drunks, come in here for some juice.
Well, now is the time of the podcast where we give our wipe score for In the Army Now. The Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie would take to get off respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It has taken out an entire Libyan Scud site without a single casualty. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster. It is risking your life to obtain health insurance and an education. Ash, we'll start with you. How many wipes do you give In the Army Now?
So look, I have to be very honest. I thought that this was going to be worse. I thought that this was going to be a movie that I absolutely hated. And I do think it's a below average comedy, but it's not horrible. I was pleasantly surprised at how much I actually not just laughed, but laughed out loud during this film. And here's the thing with In the Army Now. If you like Pauly Shore, this movie's fine. It's a Pauly Shore film. If you don't, you're kind of like me. Like, you don't want to really see it again, but this isn't like dirty work level bad for me. I think Pauly Shore is more enjoyable in this movie than Norm Macdonald in Dirty Work. God rest his soul. But, it's 3 wipes. It's fine.
Dirty Work is exponentially smarter than In the Army Now. But I understand what you're saying. Like, really smart comedians have to dumb down their jokes for the average American to laugh. It's fucking facts. And if that's the deal with the devil we have to make for a few minutes of Pauly Shore and Andy Dick and Paul Mooney slipping in some truly funny shit, so be it. It's okay. No harm done. You know who I feel bad for? David Allen Greer and Lori Petty. Like, they had so little to work with and they felt like add-ons. Like, notice we didn't say shit about David Allen Greer other than he held a giant laser. This is a funny man. They give him fucking nothing to do in this movie. And Ash, I agree with you. Like, it's not a crime against film, but I don't ever want to watch it again. This is 3 wipes for me.
It's hard to say that a movie makes Encino Man look smart. And this movie does that. I think this is insulting and unfunny to all pothead slackers out there. They deserve better besides the military. The idea was there, and Pauly was obviously forced into it. And after doing research on Pauly's career, I actually want to give him a little more credit because he does something that most comedians won't do, and we knock them for. He doesn't mind being the butt of the joke. He is the punchline on many of these interactions, and Chevy Chase would never do that. Most comedians wouldn't do that. So I think he deserved a little bit more credit, and I wish he had gotten his wish and not made this film right away and went and did his other project, which was bought by the studio and then squashed, so he was forced to do this. And I think the result shows that he was forced. It was uninspired. He didn't care about it, and it wasn't what he wanted to do. So for me, it's a 3.5 wipe movie.
Wow. That's a surprise, Big D.
Why?
I thought you were really vibing with this movie.
Me
all
too.
Your comments, and then
I thought it was
you
going
gave
to be
the
like
lowest score of all.
I know. I predicted a 2.
No, it's pretty bad. I think I'm giving it a hard score because I feel bad for Pauly. I can't believe I'm saying that either. That Pauly Shore deserved better than this film. But yeah, it was haphazard. It was a mess. And the little pieces that we found funny couldn't save it.
Well, Jen, Patrick, I'm sorry to report that 3 wipes from me, 3 wipes from Ash, and 3.5 wipes from Big D gives us an average wipe score of 3.16 repeating wipes for In the Army Now.
So Gene with a score of 3.16 repeating wipes. That now ties this in the 184 spot with Armageddon, The Last Boy Scout, Escape from New York, Spies Like Us, Strange Days, Vision Quest, 16 Candles, and Of Mice and Men.
Well, that works. I mean, I honestly think that's being quite generous to In the Army Now.
I do too. I think Strange Days is more enjoyable than this, but I think it's fine. I think the wipe score worked.
I think it's funny. Spies Like Us, another mobile missile launcher by inept soldiers trying to take it down. The comment about Of Mice and Men. There's a lot of ties to the movies within this band.
The system works. All right, Big D, what movie do you have coming up next week?
So, Gene, next week we'll be doing again another different type of movie. Upon receiving reports of a missing person at Fort Spencer, a remote Army outpost on the Western Front, Captain John Boyd investigates. After arriving at his new post, Boyd and his regiment aid a wounded frontiersman, F.W. Calhoun, who recounts a horrifying tale of a wagon trail murdered by its supposed guide, a vicious U.S. Army colonel gone rogue. Fearing the worst, the regiment heads out into the wilderness to verify Calhoun's gruesome claims. Commissioned by Ben End, released in 1999. And I'm going to be on a plane from L.A., so I don't know if I'm going to be there for this one.
Well, hey, if we're going to do any duo recording, I'm really glad that it's the horror classic Ravenous, the cannibal Western. I have to say, cannibal. I want to say that one more time so all of our listeners can prepare themselves. Not a zombie film. Oh, no. Cannibal Western.
You know, I feel that we've talked about doing compare and contrast episodes in the past. This with Cannibal the Musical would really be a nice
that would be
2-up.
so good.
Be fucking fan. It's the same fucking movie.
And also set in the Mexican-American War. So, I mean, like, it's like the weirdest mishmash. It's like they put, like, all of those things in, like, a little box, and then they pulled out, okay, what's our setting going to be? The Mexican-American War.
Yes.
What's the first genre? Western. What's the second? Cannibal horror.
It was like a Mad
Now go
Libs
make it
plot.
happen.
Yeah,
Right,
Mad Libs.
exactly. And then who do we get? Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle, and are you guys ready? David Arquette. I mean, like, how the fuck did this movie even happen? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's Westworld season 2. Anyway, now that we've offended all of our commissioners, sorry, Ben, sorry, Jen. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. You can email us, host@shatthemovies.com, or call us at 914-719-SHAT and leave a voicemail. You can support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or commissioning your own movie. Find all that information by visiting our website, shatthemovies.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all the information on our website, shatontv.com, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please leave a 5-star review. That helps the podcast grow. Also, you can now rate us on Spotify. So if you get a chance and you are listening to us on Spotify, give us a rating there too. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D and Ash, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie.
I'm sending you to California, Fort Spencer.
We have 4 missing soldiers, Captain, and no bodies. We need a supportable explanation.
Captain John Boyd is about to discover
no one just ends up at Fort Spencer. We come for a reason.
Yours being?
Well,
something he never imagined.
We have a great sense of camaraderie here at Fort Spencer.
This Indian scout told me a curious story.
Winged eagle. It's an old Indian myth from the north.
Man eats the flesh of another. He absorbs the other man's strength.
Now, one man must choose.
We need others.
Between having dinner
Not bad.
and being dinner. That's so annoying.
Stew a la Major Knox.
Guy Pearce.
I'm gonna kill him.
Robert Carlyle.
He was tough, but then a good soldier ought to be.
Jeffrey Jones.
Yeah, I was flying back from New Orleans this past weekend. I flew the kids there and then I almost said wrote back. That's not a, sorry, I'm tired. Okay. Yeah, I may have had multiple drinks at the movie theater by myself. And so I'm coming down off of that. So